Okay, cool. So today we're going to go through system administration for Confluence. And there's a link here which gives you an introduction to Confluence. I'm just going to paste that in the chat. This is a Confluence documentation side of things. So here you can browse around subjects like getting started as a Confluence Cloud Administrator, migrating clouds, between cloud and server, etc., changing the look and feel, administering global templates and different things. So we'll go through some of these things today, but this will be a good point of reference for you if you want to look further or dig deeper into administration topics after this meetup. Okay, you can see I've got a range of tabs across the top here. One of the reasons there is that I started to look at configuration earlier today, and I came across a bit of a glitch in Confluence. So I worked through trying to work that out or resolve it myself, and I just want to show you the steps that I took to try and find an answer to it. You may find other things that you might have issues with, and like we've said in other meetups, there's a few quirks with Confluence, and the information that's on the Atlassian site, sometimes it's really difficult to navigate because there's so much information there. So I just want to show you or share with you my approach for trying to find an answer for Confluence issues. So to get into system administration, on the top right-hand corner, there's this settings gear icon. So if you click on that, and I'm looking at the Integrity Works demo space at the moment, the Confluence space or site. So click on the gear, and that will take us into this general configuration tab. Up the top here, there's user management and billing. So they're the same functions that we looked at another time in another meetup. Under general configuration, or just as a high level, I suppose, you can see straight off that there's not as much system configuration available in Confluence as there is in Jira. So under general configuration on the right-hand side, we've got site configuration. So here you can set things like the site title, this contact administrator's message. That's the thing that I want to step through with you. Here you can enter some text. If somebody wants to contact an administrator, if they have some issues or they want to request some different access or something like that, there's a functionality here that you can display a contact administrator's form, and you can tailor the text that will appear in that form. So I'll step through the issue with that in a minute. Formatting and international settings, so you can say what your language is, your encoding, time format, number formats, things like that. Attachments, the default used to be 10 megs. I think that was for server, and they've now got the maximum attachment size as 100 meg, and you can edit that. With the free version, there's a limit of 2 gig of storage space, so you just need to be careful with your attachment size that you don't exceed that. And also the number of attachments per upload that you can upload concurrently, and connection timeouts, things like that you can configure there. Under further configuration, there's not much here, just the dashboard, draft save interval, 30 seconds, for example, quick navigation, and likes, different things like that, remote API, open search, threaded comments. So there's just a few things that you can tweak in there. Languages, loads up. Hopefully my internet's not going to drop out today.
Well, sorry to disturb. I'm just wondering, what does quick navigation, what does it really do?
That's a really good question. I think that's a new functionality, and it might be under either the search box up here and recently viewed, and that sort of thing, or under recent up here. I think that's what the quick navigation will be. I will check that out though.
Cool, thanks.
No worries. Okay, so just made a note there to chase that up. Cool, good question. Languages. It loads up. So you can install different languages if you want to, and you can set your default language that's for the instance. Shortcut links. So here, we can add shortcuts. Now, I've never used these before. This might be new functionality as well, but I think, so here we've got Cache, IMDb, Dictionary, Google Groups, Google. So shortcut links, there's some information over here. So to link to a Google search, you can simply use search terms at Google. So I think if you create a link, you can configure these shortcuts. So for example, dictionary, it might just make it easy throughout the whole Confluence instance to be able to make a shortcut to a dictionary via a link in a page, rather than having to type the whole URL out. That would probably help with if you wanted to have consistent links as well. So in your Confluence space or in your instance, you might want to have consistent access to a SharePoint site, for example, that your project is using, or a particular area within that. So you could probably set up a shortcut so that the link might just be SharePoint. And that would make it simpler. I think that would be a valid use of that functionality. Global templates and blueprints. So we were looking at templates and blueprints the other day, and this is where you can make global modifications rather than space-based or in the context of a space, those changes. Here you can import templates as well. Ella was discussing a few days ago about, or a few sessions ago, about importing templates between instances. So that's where you could do it. And you can also download other templates from the Atlassian plugin exchange. I think they'd probably be saved as XML, so you could probably craft your own outside of Confluence and import them in. Recommended updates email. The Confluence instance itself can send almost like a digest of recent updates or things that you might want to be interested in having a look at. So you can set the schedule for that, whether it's weekly or daily, and that would go out to users across your Confluence instance. There's a PDF export language support. So we were talking the other day about PDF configuration. So Helvetica is the default font that we use there, and you could change that if you wanted to, if you've got a different styling in your organization, different font that you use. Configuring code macro. So in Pages, we were discussing the other day about macros, and a macro really is anything to sort of simplify or automate functionality in a page, a bit different to a Visual Basic macro. And so a macro can be something from a Jira filter through to just how text is presented on a page. And in this case, you can paste code into your Confluence pages if you wanted to. And so there are different themes there. So there's a Confluence theme, Eclipse, Emacs. So these are different integrated development environments. And you can have your code, I think, display your code in a particular kind of look and feel. So the default language is Java, but you could choose something different. It could be C#, it could be Perl, etc. So that's just your default code macro. Next item here is finding new apps or plugins for Confluence. And there are a whole lot that are available. There's a lot that are available for free. And there are others that you need to pay for. So there's example, apologies if you can hear the kids carrying on in the background. There's a Miro for Confluence plugin. I think Ella was asking about Miro in the last session. So there's a plugin there. Google Drive and many others as well. Microsoft Teams as well. There's integration there that you can do. So it's probably good for you to have a look around and see what apps or plugins are available there. And for the free ones, you can have a go at installing one if you wanted to. On this instance, probably don't try out one of the paid ones. Otherwise, they'll come looking for me for money. But the free ones, feel free to try installing one so that people can play with that. Managing apps. So for those apps or plugins that have been installed, and apps is what used to be referred to as plugins. So I think that it's an interchangeable term here, interchangeable term. So we've got Team Calendars plugin, and there's the option there for a free trial. I mentioned Team Calendars in one of the previous meetups. I found this to be a really helpful plugin for Confluence, so we might install that one and give that a go. Down below here, users and groups. Now it's odd. Under user management at the top on the left-hand side here, if I click on that, it will open in a new tab. If I click on users and groups down under security, it navigates away from this page. So it's kind of inconsistent functionality there, but it goes to the same area. Security configuration, that one doesn't navigate away. And some of these areas are disabled in the free version. They've brought in new functionality now. So Varun, you were asking earlier about best practice in enabling external access. So I've done that before, but it was before Atlassian released new functionality. So the paid versions have an external user management function built in. So we might need to use a workaround if you're using the free version. So that's the one that I'll do the a how-to article on, and then perhaps a video on how to set up external user management. I'll see what's available there, because with the free version, there are limits on permissions and what you can set up there now. So it's a good marketing opportunity for Atlassian. Now, global permissions, this is where it starts to differ between, or the system administration differs between the free version, which is what we're looking at here now, and the paid version. So under the free version, we can see what functionality is available here, but it's grayed out, so we can't do anything with it. So at a global level, you can do things like set by default who can access what. So administrators, for example, have a permission globally by default of they can use Confluence, they can be a Confluence administrator. They can't be a system administrator by default. So system administrator can maybe add plugins and stuff. You might be limited in your ability to add plugins. So if somebody could have a go at that and just let me know, that would be good. Attaching files to other users' profiles, or maybe to their own. Creating personal space. So in Confluence, you can create your own space, even if you're just a user and not an administrator, then you can create your own space and play around in there. And creating a public space as well, so that you can control those permissions. Individual users, they can use Confluence, configure the administrator, configure the system administrator, attaching files, etc. So you can manage these permissions and these capabilities in Confluence either at the group level or at the individual user level. And there's also a setting down here for anonymous access globally, so not just space per space, but the default across the entire system. So Varun, this would be something else to consider as well if you were going to configure Confluence for access for your external users as well, or external clients. In a paid instance, that setting looks a little different. So if we go to global permissions, and so you can see here that I've been able to add different groups in. So I've got a home users group and I've got an external meetup group. I haven't changed the global settings here, but there are different things that you can configure here, same for the individuals. Okay. And space permissions is the other one. So if we look at space permissions in the free version, again, it's got a marketing prompter up here to upgrade so that you can get space permissions, and a bit of a demo and an oversight of what you can do. So default space permissions you can set. All this delete own permission, that's a new one. It used to be that each of these different sections, pages, blogs, comments, attachments, etc., there was a third column in here for the ability for people to delete their own. So there's delete is deleting any, whether that's a page, a blog, etc., and deleting their own. So comments and attachments, you used to be able to configure that separately, but this delete own here, I think that works across all of these different permissions. So if delete own is enabled, then that person with the delete own permission would be able to delete their own pages, their own blogs, comments, attachments, etc. So there's, again, at a group level, administrators, Confluence users, and site admins, and the permissions that they can do, and then at an individual level. So these are the individual spaces. Okay, it's a bit different. So you can, okay, the space permissions that we looked at the other day, which again are different between the free and paid for version, the individual spaces part down, down here is where you can navigate to the individual spaces to set your permissions at that level. So default space permissions and individual space permissions, which would override those. Space permissions in the paid version look a little different, so you can access it here and edit the permissions. Okay. All right. The next section there is look and feel. We talked about themes the other day that you can download additional themes from the Atlassian store or app store, app shop, if you wanted to. So there's just one theme built in. So it's the current theme that we're looking at the moment, the default theme. And you can download and install new themes and play with those. So you can either do that at the space level or at a global level as well. So you can set a global default. There's a color scheme, not many options in here, blue and white. So you can change, for example, I think that would change the button color and different things like that. So you can edit those. PDF layout and PDF style sheet, the next menu options, they're the same as what we looked at in the space administration the other day. Again, this is just at a global level. To be able to change the styling and layout of PDFs. That would be if you're going to export a page or a space as a PDF. The site logo and fave icon, and that loads. So you can change the title that appears. There's an icon up here, and you can change the word that appears up here and the icon, and that'll change what appears in the tab as well. So you can set that here, and your favorites icon as well, so that the icon that appears on the tab, you can change that here as well. So you can sort of customize Confluence for your company's look and feel a little. And I don't know whether you saw that just before. So under Integrity Works here. Oh, it's my website, sorry. Under the Atlassian site, when I had Confluence administration up there before, you could see that there was the Integrity Works icon up there. Header and footer, we talked about setting a header and footer at a space level in the last session. So also for globally, you can set the header and footer as well. And you can use Wiki Markup. So Wiki Markup is another language sort of format, which has got some tags. So you've got H1 for headings, example, bullet points, numbered lists. So you can see it's kind of a little bit like HTML. Well, not really. It's a markup language where, so you've got pipes, for example, instead of tags to define a table. So for anybody that's interested, I'm just going to paste that in the chat as well. And looking at markup. You used to be able to use Wiki Markup a lot more throughout Confluence, and then they changed to an XML editor rather than being Wiki Markup. So that's limited functionality here now. The default space logo, so you can set that if you wanted to. I don't have a default space logo at the moment. And skip one, macro usage. So we've talked a bit about macros in Confluence, and when this page loads, you can see here the macros that are in use. So we've got a page properties macro, advanced macros, Confluence create macro, and different things. So throughout our Confluence instance, these are the macros that are in use, and you can see where they are used. So if we said detail summary, for example, we want to have a look at that macro. We want to search where it's in use, then it'll show us here. Then we could go to those pages and have a look at the macro and either edit it, update it. If we wanted to change the usage of a macro right throughout the whole site, this is where we would navigate from to do that. There's no bulk update feature that I can that I'm aware of, but you could navigate to do it from here if you wanted to update pages. Audit log, this is another difference between the free and paid version, and audit logs are new functionality. So again, there's a prompt to upgrade if you wanted to get audit logs. I think that just gives you a history of the pages and what changes have been made over time. Backup manager. So here is where you would export your entire Confluence instance if you wanted to, and you can migrate using your backup. So you can migrate between server and cloud, but if you do that, there are some limitations. So for example, there's a link here, migrating from Confluence Cloud to Confluence Server. Because server might be at a different version to cloud, sometimes you have to upgrade your server instance before you export it and then import into cloud. So that can get complicated sometimes, but between cloud versions, because cloud is all on the same version, it's much simpler to import and export from one cloud instance to another, for example. Importing spaces. So if you've done a cloud export, it's it's pretty simple to import a space from one to the other. And we saw at a space level in the last session how you can export a space as XML, and then you can import that into another environment. So that's pretty cool functionality. Application links. So here we can create links between applications. So by default, there's a link between Jira and Confluence. This is where that is managed, and authentication, everything that's automatically set up for you when you set up a cloud instance of Jira, Confluence, and Cloud. Obviously, if you only chose Confluence and not Confluence and Jira together, or if you just choose Jira and not Confluence, then that application link wouldn't be created for you by default. Jira macro repair. I've never used this one, but I think if you've got a bug with your macros throughout your instance, then this functionality can look for issues with the macro right throughout. And it could be that there might be a macro that's been deprecated and is no longer in use, for example, and you might want to replace that with an upgraded macro. One example I could think of, there used to be a macro where you could attach an Excel spreadsheet and then actually render that Excel content right there in your Confluence page. And I think that macro has been removed now, so you can't use it anymore. And so if your page has had that macro in use, then that might be an example of a macro error that you might want to fix and replace with a different macro or something, or remove the macro. The very last option here is Application Navigator. So on the top left-hand corner, there's this little grid. This is where we can navigate between Jira and Confluence. That's just reminded me, Jaya. My apologies, I think I forgot to send out a screenshot and show you how to do that. But this is where you can jump from Jira to Confluence or Confluence to Jira. When you're in Jira, you can see this little grid up on the top left-hand side as well. And when you're in Confluence, it's here too. We can add something into here. So if I wanted to add in LinkedIn, for example, and I can hide the link. I'm not sure why I'd want to create one and hide it. You can restrict it to particular groups if you wanted to, or you can just make it global. And so if I add a link in here, and you might want to do this for your Confluence, for your SharePoint or some other site that you use, then you can add that there and it will appear in the list down the bottom here. So that's all of the system administration for Confluence. As you can see, it's not vast in comparison to Jira. There's a bit in there, but there's not as much that you can configure compared to Jira. Now, the glitch that I was going to show you was this contact administrators message thing. When I saw that earlier today, I was thinking, I've never used that, and I've never seen a contact administrators message available to use in Confluence. So I wanted to find out more about it. So I did a bit of a Google for this contact administrators message thing and found some information on Confluence pages in Confluence support docs, about it. So it tells me how to configure it, which is just explaining this bit here, but there was nothing in there about where this form might actually be displayed. So I Googled a bit more and it said, where can I find the contact administrators form? So it's via this link, so your Confluence base URL, and then you add in contactadministrators.action. So I thought, okay, I'll have a play around with that. And it had a link to this answer down the bottom here, which simply says it's at HTTPS Confluence contactadministrators.action. So this is something you can configure. So I thought, okay, cool, I'll try that out. And I'll get this error. None of the site administrators have email addresses that cannot be contacted via this method. And so cannot be contacted via this method. So I thought, I'm logged in as Paul and I've got my email address set. Why is it coming up with this error? So I Googled a bit more with this error message. None of the site administrators have email addresses, right? Cannot be contacted via this method. That's all I searched. And first thing it came up was in the community for Atlassian, somebody had solved it. So I looked at that page and it explains in here that there's and this is somebody from Atlassian, there's a Confluence administrators group built in, but it's reserved. So I thought, okay, I'll go and add a Confluence administrators group, see if it fails, and it didn't. It let me do it. And so I added myself into the Confluence administrators group. And then when I put this URL in again, so integrityworksdemo.atlassian.net, I'm going to paste this in the chat so you can try it out. Then it comes up with this page here. So it should default to your user email. You can set a subject and then request details. So while this thing itself might not be important and you might not use it, it was kind of intriguing to me that there's some features in Confluence and Jira that are a little bit clunky. And I guess it's from the agile mindset of focusing on, or for Atlassian to pay most attention to the features that are most highly used and most highly in demand, the things that are getting the most noise or attention, as it's saying, you know, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. So I guess some things like that, if nobody's using it or nobody's complaining about it, then perhaps they're not going to give it much attention. It's going to be a low priority for them to sort of fix this up and repair their documentation. But anyway, that was interesting. So that's most of the system administration now. We're at 12:40, so we've got about 20 minutes left. If anybody wanted to ask any questions about system administration, we can do that now and go back over some of this content. Or if you want to use the rest of the time for going through some of the macros and having a play with some of the pages, we can do that now. So over to you guys. What would you like to do?
Macros.
Macros? Yeah? No worries. All right.
Yeah, macros.
Macros. All right. Let's go to Meetup. It's good. This is good. So I'll just close off these other pages. Okay, so we've had a bit of a play around with macros. We've had some status reports here. We talked about how the new editor won't allow you to embed different things. So we can't embed, for example, and expand within or embed an inserted page inside another one. But what would you like to look at? Do you want to run through and just try out all the different macros that are available?
Paul, if you have a look at on the left-hand pane, the greatest product, the page called the greatest product.
Oh, look at this!
I just I just started putting something together. It's about a company is about to launch a product, and I wanted to put in a SWOT analysis, and I swear, and I cannot find it. I swear I saw a SWOT, an image, and it comes up and it pops up with strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and it explains it, but I can't find it. I've gone to, when I edit the page, I've gone to insert a macro. I'm looking for analysis, for marketing, for SWOT. I cannot find it.
Okay.
I'm stumped.
So, all right, let's see if there's actually a template.
Oh, create. Got it.
Yeah. Yep.
There it is.
So,
I was
that's okay.
Yeah.
It's a really good question because other people are going to have the same question, right?
Beauty. Okay, cool.
So, and that was just a really lucky guess for me. Okay. So, if we put this as SWOT analysis. Okay, so I've got internal factors, strengths, weaknesses. So this is one of the Confluence, and I've never seen this one before. One of the Confluence templates that somebody's added in. Yeah.
Great, that's it. I was just really tearing my hair out. As you can see, there's unsuccessfully because I haven't got much of it left, any of it left. But no, that's great. Thank you. I've just I wanted to put in a SWOT analysis and then just some observations. I'll include that there now.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
No problem at all. Now, if we wanted to include that SWOT here, oops, if I can type properly. So if we wanted to include SWOT analysis, then we can embed that page in here.
So how did you find SWOT analysis?
Okay, so let's just step back through this. Okay, so just a moment ago, we created this page, SWOT analysis, from a template.
Oh, right. Okay. You created that
Yep.
page. Yeah. Got it.
Yep.
Got it.
Okay, and it's a child page. Actually, it doesn't matter where it is, as long as
Yeah.
it's accessible. I've just got it as a child page at the moment of the
Got it.
greatest product.
Yeah.
So if I edit this page.
Now insert, include page, and you can select it because it's available. Got it.
Yeah, that's right. So
Oh,
here,
sweet.
so the shortcut, go / insert, include, sorry.
Yeah. If I went straight to the, I could have gone straight to the create, press the create button, right? And then the create would have given me the list, and I would have been able to filter down on SWOT and then just added it directly on the page, correct?
It would have created it as a new page. So let's just,
got it. Okay.
Yep. So let's just go through that again. So there's, good question. So there's two different concepts here, right? There's one is the page templates, right? Templates and blueprints. So when you create a new page, the entire page can be based off a template that's already pre-existing in Confluence. The other concept here is embedding macros within a page, and I've probably just confused you here because that SWOT analysis, this part here, is a page embedded in the greatest product, right? So this greatest product page includes the SWOT analysis page. Yeah. So that's a little bit.
What we're seeing there, SWOT analysis is a child page.
That's right.
Displayed in. Okay.
Yeah. So if I put in,
okay.
If I put in here, let's add in a divider. Okay, and I'm going to go heading 1, begin child included page, sorry, page, and I put in another divider. Then we've got our macro there, and then at observations, if I just put a new line in, begin a divider, heading 1, and included page. I'll put another divider in here. And if I publish this, so you can see here there's a begin included page and end included page, right? So everything in between there is using that include macro to pull everything, all the content from the SWOT analysis page in. Okay,
great.
So that's all.
And then it reflects it in the table of content, which I've created in there.
Yeah,
beautiful.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah,
so
that's great.
So I've got internal factors, etc. And yeah, so that's really powerful that it can do that. That it can, because the table of contents again is a macro. So it's one macro taking the output of another macro as its input. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty powerful. We can probably also then include the greatest product in another page, and then that will pull everything from this page as well as your SWOT analysis. So some places that I've used that before is in, for example, sprint reports. If I wanted to include in my sprint report our team members. So I had another page which was our team members, and rather than repeating that every time, I just included it. And so when I copy and pasted my sprint report, because it already had that macro in it, I didn't have to do any further editing. It just automatically by default pulled in the team members every time. You can do the same with your roadmap. So you might have a project roadmap utilized in many different places throughout Confluence, but you only want to update it in one place. And that would be another use case for
Brilliant. Brilliant. Cool. Very good. Thank you. That's great.
Yeah,
thank you.
No worries. Kudzi, did you have some macros that you wanted to look at?
No, it was actually really good. Well, I did, but it was actually really good to look at that one that you just pulled out, the SWOT analysis, because I was just thinking about the APR project that I created and how I'd been trying to play around in there, and I just, sort of.
Okay. Did you want us to have a look at so you've created an APR space?
Yeah, I have.
That's awesome. Do you want us to have a look in there? Is that okay?
If that's all right, yes, please.
Yeah, no worries. So we've got a little bit of time left here. Okay, and is there anything that you wanted to try out in here?
So the API project, where did I get stuck? I'm trying to think. Sorry, bear with me.
No, that's okay.
I'm just trying
No
to think
problem.
on the last.
That's all right. And I just had a question from Nikhil. Will you be able to take a session on project roadmap? What is it and how to create it? Yeah, yep, good call. And on LinkedIn, there was somebody who's got a roadmap plugin as well, and they were happy to demo the plugin to us. So we can try both at some stage, I think. Maybe in one of the upcoming sessions, we could look at roadmaps. We could do that maybe in the power users session at the end of next week. We could go through advanced roadmaps perhaps and have a play around with that. That'd be good.
Yeah, that would be good. Thanks, Paul.
No worries.
Hi, Paul. It's Kusila here. Just a question on the roadmap side of things. So the roadmap plugin in Confluence, is that different to the roadmaps that you're getting for example, one of your next-gen projects in Jira?
Yeah, yep. So let's have a look at that now. And Kudzi, we'll come back to you in a minute if that's okay. Let's just
that's
call
all
this
right.
one try. Okay, so macros tryout. And if we go into our macros list here, we can see there's a Jira roadmap. And this one here is a macro to pull in real time the roadmap data from a next-gen Jira project. So roadmaps, in one of the earlier meetups, we were discussing roadmaps that they originated in the next-gen projects, and they're going to be made available to classic projects. I'm not sure if that's been released yet or not. But if you create a roadmap using that approach under Jira, then it would pull that in live into Confluence. So any adjustments that you make in Jira would automatically flow through, and it's got a lot of functionality. I haven't got any next-gen projects set up, so I won't use that one. But the other macro for roadmaps, if I type up here, roadmap, is a roadmap planner. Well, there's actually two. The Jira roadmap, this is a macro that pulls release data or fixed version data from Jira. So we might be able to put that one in. And so if I go all projects, and let's say 90 days, there might not be any in here. Save that. Some of the, okay, so there we go, we've got that. Some of the older macros in Jira, they've got like a two-step process. So you have to save the macro first, or the widget. I think they're called gadgets or widgets. You have to like save it in this preview panel and do some more configuration here. So save it first, and then you insert it. Okay, so this is when they say it's a roadmap macro, this one's just pulling through release data, which is reflected as a fixed version field in Jira. We can see here there are some releases that are beyond their due date, because this is all our mock data that we've pulled in. And this will give us a 0 of 3 issues resolved, for example. So let's just add that in and another line under. So from here, these gadgets, they sort of load in a different way, like they've got that barber shop poll thing going on. And if I go to my fixed version of 2.1, and let's resolve one of these. So I'm just going to pick one of these Jira issues and close it. Done. Now if I go back to this page, and so this is back in Confluence again, and I refresh, then it updates this. So it's pulling the stats real time from Jira. And these bars here, so the green and the red, if I click on that, it'll take us into Jira and run the query. So where the project equals ancient circle and fixed version equals 2.1, resolution equals empty. So that's one type of roadmap. It's not a roadmap in the general sense of how we would describe a roadmap, though. It's more just pulling live release data from Jira, which is very useful. And I've used that one a bit before. The other one, if I go into my macros menu and view more and type in roadmap here, it's this roadmap planner. And this one, it's kind of a, I was going to say it's a dumb element. It doesn't have any behavior itself. There's a couple of parameters here. You can say whether you want it to show by weeks or months, for example, and what date range you want to look at. So if we finish this one in December 12, so let's just go 1st of December. All right, and tab, and it just changes the view that we've got here. We can move these bars around. And when I say it doesn't have much functionality, I've used it a lot because it's a powerful tool for conveying information. We can do things like change color of our bars. We can edit the name of our bars. So this is all swim lanes, swim lane 1. And let's imagine this one was, click on that. Communications. This one might be vendor deployments, for example, whatever you want to put. Okay. So we can add. Sorry, I forgot to turn Bluetooth off on my phone again. Okay. We can add in more swim lanes if we wanted to. We can add more bars in, and you can drag the bars up and down and place them. And when you move them, they automatically change to the swim lane color. And we can extend the bar, drag it around like that. If you try and put a bar over another bar, it'll automatically, like it's sort of grayed out, so I can't do it. But if I put it at the end of it, I can do that. If they start to overlap, you'll get that grayed out thing again. And I can move them up and down and around like that. So not a whole lot of functionality there. And you can add markers in. The markers, quite often if you've got a bit of text in your marker, here's a really long marker name, label. Then they start to overlap a bit, which is a bit messy, but you know, it's okay.
So this would be good to do some sprint planning, Paul, correct?
Absolutely.
The roadmap planner, is there a concept or a gadget called sprint planner in Jira?
There's not as such, but it is a really common request that people say, well, I want to see a roadmap of what the coming sprints are going to have in them. And you're absolutely right. That's a use case that I've used often, Ignacio. So this one, the top one, I would quite often, okay, here's a bug with Confluence with this macro. If you ever get this where you're trying to edit the label of a swim lane and it comes up grayed out like this, click on the Save button, click on the Insert button down on the bottom right-hand corner, and then go back in and edit. And then it will let you change it. So there's a workaround for a common bug. So yeah, I would quite often put this one up as sprints on the first one. And we might say, we've got sprint 1.
Yeah, because the last project that I was in, the iteration lead or the project manager here, he actually used sprint plan and he threw that up on the Confluence page. So yeah, I think that's what I was thinking, whether there was an actual widget or a gadget called sprint planner as opposed to roadmap planner, but this would do the trick.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other part that you might notice here is the ability to link a page or create a page in Confluence. And this is probably where it becomes quite powerful, right? So if I wanted to create a new page, and So that will run the create link. And let's go with the start. I wonder if I've got any sprint. Sprint planning meeting. Okay, so there's a template for sprint planning meeting. And there's the design sprint template. So let's go with the design sprint template. And I'll publish that one. Design sprint. So here, and it hasn't automatically updated it. If I now search for design sprint, now if I save that macro, and this is a two-step process, right? You've got to save the macro or insert it, and then you've got to publish the page. You might lose the changes sometimes if you don't do that. Then on sprint one, we've now got a link to our design sprint page. So it pops up with this window, and then the design sprint page, you can get to it from there.
Well, that's terrific. So really, it's the overlying concept is a space is composed of pages, and you can have any number of parent and child pages actually structured. And then once you define or create them, then they are available via links to any other page.
Exactly. And you can link between Jira and Confluence too. So if we put in here, let's add a Jira link into ANC. I can't remember now. Oh, maybe we had a 34 or something. Okay, so if I insert a link in here to ANC 34, and I'm just going to display it as a single issue for now. I'll publish that. So my link is down here. So it gives me the issue type, the link, the summary, and its current status. And if I go to that Jira issue, then it's automatically created a reciprocal link from Jira back to the Confluence page it's mentioned in. Yeah. So so when you start to stitch this stuff together, it becomes very, very powerful.
It's terrific. Yeah, that's great.
It is. It is. So that's this roadmap macro, even though it's quite simple, doesn't have a whole lot of functionality to it. It's a great tool to be able to roll up and visualize any amount of information, and then be able to navigate from there to the deeper detail. So yeah, it's very handy.
Thanks, Paul. I think for me, I was looking at it more from a product development perspective, where I can easily line out a simpler version of the product roadmap here, and then being able to link that to like a specific page or space that has the sort of explanation of the new feature. That'd be really good for the rest of the business, sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And the sprint pages that you link here, they can be very complex, right? And in those, you can pull data. For example, sprint goals. You could have your status of your sprint goals and how you're tracking towards them showing on your sprint page if you wanted to. Then you can link to retros and your sprint planning meeting sessions and different things like that. If you like, in an upcoming session, maybe the daily users one next week, can I have a quick thoughts on whether you would like to spend more time on Confluence next week or back into Jira? What would your preference be?
Probably
or
Confluence.
Do both.
Jira.
Confluence?
Jira.
What about what about if we do a bit of both? So what about in Tuesday's daily users session, if I use Confluence to structure the data around a sprint? So it could be to sprint planning meeting notes and pulling through data on sprint goals and different things like that, so that we can tie in how you would use Jira and Confluence together in a sprint. Would that help?
Sounds good.
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds great. Thanks, Paul.
No worries. I've got a little bit more time now. Kudzi, did you have some things that you want to run through, or questions that you wanted to ask about the macros? Did you find what you were looking for?
You know what I'll do? I'll redo. I'll create a space and pages and parent, like child pages and all this sort of stuff, and then play around a little bit more and see where I get stuck and nudge you if that's okay. Because I think that question that you went through at the start with Ignacio sort of help me clear
Yeah,
things in my
okay.
head. But
Yeah, for
I will
sure.
have to redo that myself, just that practical application.
Yep. Yeah, no problem. If you're happy to, for yourself and the others, if you wanted to have the discussion, like if you've got questions and different things, if we have it in the shared channel in Slack, then others can benefit from it too.
Yep.
So if Ignacio, for example, has got questions about macros and things, and he asks about something and I answer in there, then Kudzi, you might go, oh, that's cool. Yeah, I can try that, or I'll play with it a bit more, and we can have a discussion back and forth that way, if you're comfortable too.
Yeah.
If there are other things that you want
Of
to try
course.
out and just discuss with me one-on-one, then yeah, that's cool too. So awesome.
No props, thanks.
So,
No, I
All right.
like that.
Paul,
Thanks, Paul.
That's terrific, Paul. I forget about Slack. I'll start using Slack a bit more. That's a good comms
No
channel.
worries. And I wanted to ask you all also, sorry, Nikhil, I've been sending reminders about the meetups through LinkedIn, on Slack, and the meetups website itself, or sending messages to members and that sort of thing. I want to ask: is that too much information? Is it about right? Is there a preferred channel? Is there one that you're getting the messages, but others that are not coming through? And I just want to get a sense from people what the preference is there. All good? No worries.
yeah, no
Thank you.
worries. Like,
It's working
Great
okay?
for me. Thanks.
Yeah, no stress.
Yeah.
No stress. I just didn't want to be spamming people too much and have people go, oh, geez, there's another email from the meetup. Jaya, what works well for you?
Usually I just go to Meetup and sign up, and then, but I like how you are posting the Zoom link on Slack. That's very helpful.
Okay.
Just in case I forgot to sign up and, the Meetup doesn't show the Zoom link on the site. So I don't feel that as a spam call. It's perfect.
Okay, no worries. Oh, thanks, Jaya. And I think one thing I picked up today was that, as you've mentioned also, Jaya, people don't necessarily have the link to Zoom, like if they haven't got access to their calendar or whatever. So if I share the Zoom link for each one in the reminder message as well, maybe that might help too. Cool. All right. Thank you so much for your feedback, everybody. I really appreciate it. If there's anything more that you wanted to add into the idea boards, just let me know. Awesome, Ignacio. Good question in Slack. He's in Slack. That's awesome. So let's carry on that conversation in Slack. And for anybody who's watching this video, if you join our Slack channel, then you'll be able to have access to all these good questions. All right. So I'll stop recording. If I can find the button.
yeah. So, Paul, just a quick question.